What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my official Big Ten football projections for the upcoming 2025 college football season. So yesterday I did the SEC. If you have not seen that video, if you have not seen my projections for the SEC conference, you can go back and watch that video right here live on the channel, or I shouldn't say live, but from yesterday in the videos on my channel. Now I'm going to show you my Big Ten football projections for 2025. We went through every single team in the Big Ten, gave you a schedule preview and very early projected record based on how tough their schedules were. I want to make this clear, this is not an official prediction. These are simply projections based off of how tough each and every team's schedule was and kind of how good we expect each team to be. And don't forget, we'll have the Big 12 tomorrow, and then we'll have the ACC to close things out on Thursday. So let's go ahead and jump right into my Big Ten football projections for 2025, and we'll start here with the first 5 teams at the top here in the Big Ten projections. So I got Ohio State and Oregon. They're both projected to go 11-1. Ohio State, of course, has to play Texas in the non-conference. That is going to be a pretty tricky game. So even if they lose that game, they can probably win out for the rest of the year and go 11-1 and still make it to the Big Ten championship and still be undefeated in conference play. Now you look at their schedule in the Big Ten, they're going to have to play Penn State, obviously. They get that one at home at least, but they got to play Michigan at the end of the year. So maybe one of those other losses could become, probably in the Big Ten. It probably could be against Penn State, or it could be probably against Michigan on the road, and then they probably could lose to Texas. But you look at their worst case scenario, it's probably going to be 10-2 for them, and then best case probably going undefeated at 12-0. I don't really think anybody's going to go undefeated though in the Big Ten, because it is tough to go undefeated. But we saw that last year with Oregon. They went undefeated, like 12-0, and then perfect undefeated record in Big Ten play, and then they went into the college football playoff as the only undefeated Power 4 team. So again, I think this is going to be a really tough conference though this time, because Ohio State and Oregon, I think, are going to be taking a little bit of a step back from where they were from last year. Again, I think they'll still be talented, but they're going to have to just replace a lot on both sides of the football. And then same thing for Oregon. They are projected to go 11-1. Both of these teams have to replace, quarterbacks. They're going to have like young quarterbacks to fill in for those spots, and they're just going to have plenty of young guys that are going to have to step up on both sides of the football. But yeah, Oregon, they are projected to go 11-1. They don't have a very tough non-conference schedule. I mean, they got to play Oklahoma State and also Oregon State, but that's about it. Both of those teams are not really good last year. So yeah, based off of that and based off of how tough their schedule is, they are projected to go 11-1. Indiana and Penn State, they're both projected to go 10-2. Indiana kind of has a tougher schedule compared to last year. I mean, they got to play like some of the top teams in the Big Ten this season. They don't have to play Ohio State, though, if I'm not mistaken, but I think they have to play some of the other top teams in the Big Ten as well. But they are projected to go 10-2. I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana kind of took a bit of a step back. I mean, they're going to lose a lot of players from last year's team. They're going to have to rely on the transfer portal again. They did bring another great transfer portal class, don't get me wrong, but the schedule again is much more tougher compared to last year, and they are projected to go 10-2 though based on that schedule. Their worst case scenario probably 9-3, and then best case probably 11-1. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go 9-3 or maybe 8-4. And I think a lot of people would probably think that's a disappointment, but I don't think it will be, because Indiana is not as talented as Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State, obviously in the Big Ten. But you look at Penn State, they are projected to go 10-2. I would be surprised if Penn State definitely drops off. I would definitely not be surprised if they do a lot better than that 10-2 projected record. I could see them going like 11-1 or maybe 12-0, because the schedule, they have to play Ohio State on that schedule and then also Oregon. So maybe one of their losses come against one of those two teams, and then they could probably go 11-1 and probably make the college football playoff and still make it to the Big Ten championship. But yeah, this Penn State team, they're going to lose a lot on the defensive side of the football, but they added some additions in the transfer portal, and the offense should overall be really much better compared to last year. They got Drew Aller back at quarterback. They also brought in a couple of receivers from the transfer portal. And yeah, we'll talk about more of these teams once we get into my predictions for 2025. And I might do some power rankings for the spring football as well. But yeah, Penn State, they are projected to go 10-2 based on how tough their schedule is. And then you got Illinois here projected to go 9-3. I think Illinois, based on their schedule, they have a chance to be like a dark horse team in the Big Ten this year. Based off of what they did from last season, they were really good. Are Are they going to be really as good as they were from last year? Maybe not, but Illinois has a lot of experience coming back. They also got their starting quarterback returning. So yeah, this Illinois team has a chance to become a dark horse team, and you never know, a dark horse playoff contender in the Big Ten as well. So watch out here for this Illinois team, and based on their schedule, they are projected to go 9-3. Let's go to the next 5 teams now. We got Michigan, also projected to go 9-3. I kind of expect Michigan to be right there where they used to be in the Big Ten from a couple of years ago, and of course they won the national championship in that couple years ago, not too long ago. It looks like Michigan might start a freshman quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. They have one of the top quarterbacks in the country coming up next year. They got to play Oklahoma in the non-conference on their schedule, and really, we're not really evaluating the rosters. We can say a little bit about them, but it's really about the schedules here. It's all about the projected records based on that overall record, and it's also just based off of how tough the schedules are. But for Michigan, their schedule does give them a projection of 9-3. I think their best case scenario probably 10-2, and then worst case probably 8-4. If Michigan probably drops off, probably compared to last year. I mean, obviously last year was definitely a big drop off because they lost so much from 2023, but it didn't really matter. They finished the season pretty strong, and they do have a lot of those players returning. So yeah, I kind of expect Michigan to be pretty good this year, and they are projected to go 9-3 for that reason. USC projected to go 8-4. USC's schedule is not as tough as it was from last year. They don't have to play like another top Power 4 conference team like they did against LSU, but they got to play Notre Dame out of the Independent. That's obviously not going to change because they play that game every year because of the rivalry and everything. But yeah, they are projected to go 8-4. So maybe one of their 4 losses comes to Notre Dame in the non-conference, and then they probably can lose like 3 games in the Big Ten. But yeah, USC might have a chance to become a dark horse team in the Big Ten based on how tough their schedule is. So yeah, USC projected to go 8-4. And then you got Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska. These 3 teams are projected to go 7-5 here in the Big Ten this season. You got Iowa, that's 7-5. I kind of expect them to be right there in the middle of the pack. Same thing for Minnesota. As a consistent program, I kind of expect Minnesota to be right there around 6, 7, 8 wins, somewhere in that particular win range. This is one of the more consistent programs in the Big Ten, and they definitely are well coached. And then Nebraska, we'll see if they can definitely have a better record compared to last year under third-year head coach Matt Rule. I think he's done a pretty good job so far for Nebraska. If Nebraska can win those close games on their schedules, including like the 50-50 games that they had on that schedule that I went over, then they'll have a chance to probably go 8-4, or maybe like also 6-6 if they don't probably win those close games, or if they can go 5-7 if they lose a lot more of those close games. But yeah, Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska, these are all teams that are projected to go 7-5. The schedule does give them that medium chance of making it to a bowl game and getting right there to around 6, 7, 8 wins. I think their best case scenario is definitely 8-4, and then worst case for these teams are like 6-6. So these are all the next set of 5 teams. Let's go to the next set now. We got Maryland and Rutgers and Washington. These are all teams projected to make it to a bowl game barely. You got Maryland projected to go 6-6, Rutgers also 6-6, and then Washington 6-6. So these teams are all projected to make it to a bowl game. You look at Maryland, I kind of expect them to turn things around after a disappointing year. They had a pretty young team last year, and they lost so much from the year before. So, yeah, I kind of expect the Terrapins to be right there around 6, 7, 8 wins. But, at their best, 7-5 is definitely their best case scenario. That's probably the same thing with Rutgers and Washington. And then their worst case is definitely not making it to a bowl game at 5-7. You look at Rutgers, though, they have a very tough schedule this year in 2025. But, their projection is still saying 6-6. They will be favored in some of their games in the Big Ten, but not really much. I mean, because they have to play some of the top teams in the Big Ten. I think they have to play Ohio State and Oregon both on the schedule. Don't remember if they play Penn State or not, but they have to play some of the top teams in the Big Ten this year in 2025. So, yeah, Rutgers definitely projected to still make it to a bowl game, though, at 6-6. And then Washington also 6-6. Washington, I think they have a lot to improve here with Jedd Fisch as their second-year head coach. They could probably, have a better season compared to last year. The schedule was kind of tough for them, and obviously it was a bit of a step back because they lost so much production from the year before in 2023. But yeah, I kind of expect Washington to have a little bit of a turnaround under Jedd Fisch, but if they go 6-6 or even 7-5, that's fine with me because of how tough the schedule is, and that's why you're seeing the projection at 6-6. But yeah, all these, teams right here, Maryland, Rutgers, and Washington, Washington. They are projected to make it to a bowl game at 6-6, and I think their best case scenarios would definitely have to be 7-5, and then worst case probably like 5-7 and not making it to a bowl game. And then you got Northwestern and UCLA. These two teams are projected to miss out on a bowl game by 1 game. You look at Northwestern, a disappointing year last year for them in 2024. Can they turn things around? But their schedule is pretty tough. They are projected to go 5-7, and then same thing with UCLA. Now, UCLA, maybe they are kind of, a little bit, better this year in 2025. Both of these teams have young head coaches. Northwestern has their third-year head coach, and then UCLA under Deshaun Foster, it's just his second year. But they do have pretty tough schedules that they'll definitely be underdogs in some of them. But UCLA and Northwestern, they are projected to both miss out on a bowl game at 5-7 based on how tough their schedules are. Their definitely best case scenario is definitely 6-6, and their worst case is probably like 4-8, or maybe even worse. It could be 3-9. If both of these teams probably finish 3-9 or below, then that's probably gonna be another disappointing year for both of these teams, and they'll probably have to put their coaches on the hot seat. So yeah, Northwestern and UCLA though projected to go 5-7, and then we go to the way bottom of the Big Ten standings. We got Michigan State and Wisconsin. They're both projected to go 4-8. And look, Michigan State, they might be a little bit better compared to last year, but their schedule is very tough, and that's the reason why you're seeing them projected to go 4-8. And last year they didn't have all that talented roster and everything. They could probably have a better roster compared to last season, but it's kind of hard to tell how good this Michigan State team is going to be, especially with a second-year head coach. Wisconsin, though, they are projected to go 4-8. And look, I'm not saying that Wisconsin is going to be bad. It's just based off of their schedule. That's pretty much the reason why these are not predictions. These are simply projections based off of how each and every team's schedule and how tough it was. The Badgers have a very tough schedule, especially in the non-conference. They have to play Alabama on the road. That's obviously going to be a game where they're definitely going to be big underdogs in. And they do have a very tough schedule in the Big Ten. So that's the reason why you're seeing Wisconsin here projected to go 4-8, and then possibly, win like at least a couple of games in the Big Ten. But yeah, Wisconsin, they have just not been able to get it done under Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell has not had a really good start in the first 2 years that he's been here for the Badgers. Last year was a 5-7 season, and then the year before was like a 7-5 type season, I guess, or maybe it was like 6-6 if I can't remember correctly. But yeah, it has just not been a good start here for Wisconsin. This year, they have to definitely turn things around in order to keep Luke Fickell's job. But yeah, as of right now, they are projected to go 4-8 based on how tough their schedule is. And Wisconsin was really close to having that toughest schedule in the Big Ten, in my opinion. They might have the toughest schedule, don't get me wrong, in the Big Ten. But Michigan State and Wisconsin both projected to go 4-8 based on how tough their schedules are. Their best case scenario probably like 5-7, and then worst case probably 3-9. And speaking of 3-9, Purdue here at the way bottom. I don't really think Purdue's going to be really good this year just by looking at it. Barry Odom is a veteran coach and all, but I just don't think he's going to get the job done right away in his first year. They are projected to go 3-9. They have a very tough schedule, especially in the non-conference. They have to play Notre Dame on the road, and they got a very tough schedule in the Big Ten because they have to play Ohio State on that schedule, and they also got to play some of the other top teams in the Big Ten as well. But yeah, Purdue, they are projected to go 3-9. Their best case scenario probably like 4-8, and then worst case 2-10. Wouldn't be surprised if they went 1-11 again, or maybe like 2-10. That probably wouldn't shock me one bit here for the Boilermakers because of how tough the schedule is. But yeah, Purdue definitely has a very tough schedule, and that's the reason why you're seeing them projected to go 3-9. So those are all my Big Ten football projections for 2025. Do you guys agree or disagree with these projections? Let me know down in the comments below, and also give me your projections for the Big Ten as well down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.